My name is Samara, Samara. I am 22 years old. I got burned when I was 3 years old. It was boiling water. I was born in Mexico. I lived with my grandparents at the time, and it was an accident. I don't know, back then they didn't have boiling water. Like, they didn't have like hot water that was coming out the faucet or anything like that. So when you took a shower, you had to boil your water. And so my cousin next door, they lived in a two-story house. And I was 3 years old. It was really cold. And my cousin was taking a shower. And she goes, "Hey, Sam, come over. Come hang out." And I was like, "Okay, cool." So I go over there. And my other cousin, her brother, was bringing the boiling water up the stairs. And he told me to get out the way. And I got out the way. But I opened the door. And he was like right in front of the door. And like it spilled on top of me. And so I got third-degree burns on my left side of my body, which is my arm, my thigh, and my leg, and my foot. And it was bad because like I said, it was cold, so I had flannels on, and so it just soaked in everything. And so I just kept it all on there. So when they took my clothes off, it just like ripped everything. Like everything just started falling off with it. Um, but the good thing about it is, like, when you get a third-degree burn, you don't feel anything because your nerves have been burned. So I didn't cry. I don't remember like crying or being in any kind of pain. But it was really hard because like they had to induce me into a coma because I was 3 years old, and obviously I was not still. I wasn't incorporating what they needed me to do, and so I was in a coma for like a month until I could heal properly. I did have other surgeries after I moved here to Arkansas, and I was 8 years old at that time. And then I do remember that process, but my initial process, I don't.
So when you were 8, was that like skin graft?
Yeah, I had other skin grafts done when I moved here. I had two more at Children's Hospital. And then the healing process was awful. It was so painful. It's not something I would ever want to feel again. Um, and it does take a long time. But before they did the skin graft, actually, they went and carved out my skin and took out all the dead skin off of it and put like artificial skin on there for like maybe a month. And then we went and did the skin graft, and then that's when they put the real skin, my own skin, onto my scar. And it was so painful. It was awful. Like, there's like your skin is just like peeled off, and you're just sitting there with like all your skin peeled off of it, and all you see, it's like the second layer of skin, which is like more sensitive than your third, fourth layer. So it's really painful because like you can't really do much. Like, I remember like spending my summer like just laying on my bed, like waiting until that heals. And it's like they lay like a really thin layer of fabric on top of it, and then like it'll start to scab all over it, and then they have to remove that on top of yours. It's so painful. It's awful, and I don't ever want to be in that position again because it hurts. I was the only child at the time, and my mom like dedicated her whole time to me, and my scar still got infected. And it was really painful because like they had to go on there and clean it and then take the staples off of it and re-staple it. I had to go under anesthesia, and then my mom freaked out because I passed out, and she's like, "I've never seen her like this." Um, in middle school, it wasn't so much of a big deal well, because I wear pants all the time, so they wouldn't be able to see my scars because I was not embarrassed, but it was not something that I was comfortable enough doing by myself. And then at that point, I didn't know anyone but myself that was a burn survivor until I started going to camp. And so in middle school, I didn't really show my scars at all. But I do remember in elementary school, one time this kid made fun of me, and he was trying to be real mean to me. I don't even know why, but he was being mean to me, and he said, "Oh, don't touch my stuff because you have awful scars that look like grandma's skin." And I would never forget that. Like, that genuinely like just scarred me. Like, like that really did hurt my emotions. And so after that incident happened, like I kind of just like, didn't really show my scars or ever talked about them or anything like that. It wasn't until high school that I just kind of grew out of that moment in my life and just kind of was like, this is who I am. I'm not like, the scars are not going to go away. And you know what? That was a part of my life that changed who I am now. And it's like, it hurt me. Like, it really helped me learn who I am. And so at this point, after high school started, I started wearing just clothes. I didn't care about my scars. I wear shorts, I wear skirts. It was fine. I didn't care, and I was happy with that because, I mean, whoever's going to love me, whoever wants to be with me, it's going to accept me for who I am and whatever comes with me. I'm not ashamed. I love my scars just the way they are.
So in high school, you said it's kind of when all that kind of you got more comfortable and you started
Yeah,
wearing shorts and
yeah.
dresses, skirts, all
And
that
I
kind of
think it helped a lot that I was going to camp with Camp Sunshine because like I met other teenagers that were my age, and then some people had scars they couldn't hide, which was like on their face or, you know, like more noticeable areas on their necks or fingers. Like you can't really hide those. And so it just gave me more strength to see them go overcome those emotions with them. And they were like okay to show their scars. It just gave me more motivation to be like them. And so it helped me grow, and it helped me be proud of it, you know, and just embrace my story. Yeah, so with Dustin Wise, we met him a couple years ago with Greta, partnered up with him with the Wise Foundation, which is also a burn survivor community. And then he started a long time ago. I don't remember when he started, but we were part of his first um, survivors to come to that camp. And it was more, Camp Sunshine has like a variety of ages. And then Wise Foundation just focused in young adults. So that was another big part of my life, and I really like enjoy going there. Me, but I do notice like the older I get, people become more, you know, more curious in regards to what's going on with my leg, and they might say things, they're not the nicest thing, but they don't think it's rude. I've had people like ask me like, "Oh, what happened to you?" You know, and I'm like, "Oh, I'm a burn survivor," and they're like, "Oh, that's cool. I guess you don't have to shave your leg." And I'm like, I'm like, I would prefer to shave my leg than have a scar, but thanks. I don't know. So they say things like that now. Adults say things like that, and then like kids, they don't really say anything, but they stare. Um, so in college wise, I mean, it's not really been an issue. The issue more that I see myself in is like in the dating world. It's more hard for me to open up to a new person that doesn't know my past or history about my scar. So like that's a little bit harder, and I'm more shy about it in that perspective because I don't know, like what if they're like creeped out about it or freak, you know, like it's just hard to open up about that to someone that I might be interested in.
So what about like sports and stuff like that?
Hmm.
Did you ever have any limitations from your scars for sports? Or?
Um, so like in sports wise, when I was in high school, I did play soccer, and I didn't have any limitations in regards to that. I did have to be more careful because like sometimes if I slid and fell and I scratched my scar, like I didn't feel it, but like it was like legit bleeding, and I didn't have no sensation of me bleeding. Yeah, because I don't have any sensitivity on my scar, so I did have to be more careful in that perspective because I could bruise it more easily, and I would not know until like it's already probably infected or something.
Ask, is there a preferred way that's not as awkward as to shave your legs? I mean, if they're curious, is there a way to go about it that you
I would just, I mean, first I would see how comfortable that person is with their scar or like any, you know, with their body in general. If people are like obviously embarrassed or ashamed of it, you're going to notice, like it's an obvious notice, like they're not going to show their scars off. They're not going to talk about them or anything like that. Um, I think I would prefer people just like, if they asked, it would be like, oh, do you mind me asking about your scar, or like do you mind me like I would just want to know. And I mean, in my perspective, I would just answer like, "Oh, I'm a burn survivor. Got burned when I was 3 years old with boiling water, and it's all cool." And then, I mean, if they're like, "Oh, okay," I mean, I don't like when they're like, "Oh, okay, I'm sorry," or "Okay, I'm cool." I'm like, "Oh, wow, that's very impressive." You know, like more like giving me a compliment or giving me more like a lifting moment instead of like, "Oh, okay," like you know. It would be more like, "Oh, well, that's very impressive. I'm so proud of you. Like you've overcame that." You know, like more like that. Response would be better than, oh, that's cool. I do have a funny story though. When I was growing up and like middle school, kids would ask me what happened. I'm like, I got attacked by a shark, and they all believe me. They really believe me. I got attacked by a shark. And I was, until like later on in high school, I was like, no, I did not get attacked by a shark. But okay. But usually kids, like little kids, like my little cousins, I mean, they grew up with me having my scar already, and they're like, oh, what is that? And they're like so amazed by it. And I'm like, oh, it's just my scar. I'm like, oh, okay. And then they forget about it and they just keep walking and don't bring it up again. But I feel like if you open up your kids' minds and you help them learn about things at a younger age. For example, my little cousins like know I'm a burn survivor, so like when we go on the streets and we see other people with like scars or something, I'm like, oh look, they're just like me. And they're like, oh okay, and like they don't ask about it, they just keep walking. Or like they're wearing a prosthetic and I'm like, don't stare, it's just a prosthetic. And they're like, oh okay. And then you just kind of have to like tell them how, like, you know, how you see it in perspective, how you brought up into that situation at first. I feel like that's what helps kids like understand things of issues at a bigger open mindset, you know. Um, Little kids can be mean. They can be so mean. But I feel like I've been in those situations multiple times where it kind of just doesn't bother me anymore. Some kid told me one time that I was never going to be a model because I had a scar on my leg. And I was like, also, I'm short, you know, so I'm probably never going to be a model. And they're like, oh, true, you are short. And I'm like, yeah. I remember being 7, 8 years old and being very embarrassed of my scars. And it's like a very weird stage in life because you're like learning about your body, but also you're learning about how to live with the scars. I think what helped me get over it, or not get over it, but you know, kind of live with it, was the fact that I have very supportive family, and so they helped me realize that I am beautiful just the way I am, and that I am, no matter my scars, like they're not going to stop me from like reaching my limits in life, which is becoming a very successful person and being able to do everything you want to do. Like scars is just like, it's just like a tattoo. It's just something in, like part of your skin, but it doesn't stop you from who you are. There's like another camp in California, I think, which focuses on burn survivors for women. And there's like young women and there's like adult women supports, but none of those are like free. Like you have to pay to go to them. And so you can do an application to see if you can get like financial assistance, but most of it you have to pay out of pocket, which is like includes your flight and like your hotel and all that stuff. So it's like really expensive to do it. There's also World Camp burn survivors, which is like you bring like everybody from like I guess all over the world or something, and then they have like a huge convention. And also it's expensive. You have to pay out of pocket unless you fill the application and you get financial assistance type of thing. I filled it out twice. I've never been able to go, and I've always wanted to go, but I've never gotten the assistance to go, so I haven't gone. Um, and that's basically all I know. But like I don't know anyone outside of like the Wise Foundation or Camp Sunshine that like I can like, you know, reach out to in Arkansas. Those are like the only two. And like Wise Foundation is not even established in Arkansas. It's in a whole different state. Um, but I feel like there is not enough. I feel like it's not well advertised either. I feel like that's why a lot of burn survivors feel very isolated because they don't know any resources to go about besides the ones they're given at the hospital. I think I would tell my 7, 8 year old self that you're going to do what you want to do regardless of your scars. You're going to be so happy. You're going to learn to love them. And I feel like you always have to stay positive and true to yourself. And you can't let other people hurt your feelings because at the end of the day, what should matter is what you feel about yourself. What should matter is how you think about yourself. Um, so I would definitely tell them to just love themselves a little bit more because they genuinely deserve to be loved more. I would definitely encourage them to be strong, to remember that if you're able to overcome such a huge accident in your life, that you're basically invincible. You can do whatever you want to do. You have the superpower of strength. You just have to be patient because things are not going to change overnight. And you're not going to feel yourself overnight. It's going to take a lot of time. But I think once you learn to love yourself, you're unstoppable. Like you're gonna be so successful. You're gonna be so strong, and you're gonna be able to do whatever you want to do.
Awesome. And what are we studying?
We are studying biomedical engineer. I hope to go to medical school one day, but as of right now, I just want to work my profession and do anything that has to do with prosthetics. Everything just honestly got started because being a burn survivor, I spent a lot of time in hospitals. And so I wanted to choose a degree that was that would eventually give me my first step into the door with medical school. I was first originally biology major, but then I realized that it might have not been exactly what I wanted to do right then, because after you get a biology major, it's really hard to just find a job in the biology world with just a 4-year degree. And so I chose to, instead of doing biology, I chose biomedical engineer, because even if I choose not to go to medical school in the long term, it would be more facilitated for me to find a decent job where doing something that I do like doing, which is helping other people. And so I like working with prosthetics because it's really fascinating how much you can help someone's life by just adding one piece to their body back that they might be missing.